have you ever felt like you have to be two different people at work? One minute you're the tough boss laying down the law, and the next you're supposed to be this super supportive coach. Well, one manager was so stuck on this it felt completely impossible. It's a feeling so common, we're calling it the authority paradox, and today we are going to unpack it.
So our story starts right here, with a manager totally at their wits' end, saying this to their coach. And that one sentence, man, it just captures this feeling perfectly. This sense of being pulled in two completely opposite directions.
And this feeling, for them, it created what they called the impossible bind, this constant clash between the two roles we're all told we have to play as leaders.
Okay, so let's get real here. This manager story makes it super clear. Just yesterday, they had to be the boss. An employee, Sarah, was 3 weeks behind on a huge project. They had to be firm, enforce that deadline, hold her accountable. But then, literally the next day, Sarah shows up wanting to talk about her career. She's feeling lost. And now she needs the coach, someone who listens, someone she can be vulnerable with. How in the world are you supposed to be both of those people?
Exactly. The manager felt like a phony. How can you switch from being the stern boss to a warm, fuzzy mentor without it feeling totally fake? This whole wearing two hats thing, that's the paradox.
But this is where the story gets really interesting. The manager's coach listens to all of this and then challenges the entire premise of the problem. They suggest it's all built on a flawed assumption. And boom, that's the question from the coach that changes everything. What if the whole problem, this idea of switching hats, was never the problem at all? What if you were never supposed to be two different people in the first place?
And here it is, the big breakthrough. When Sarah came asking for coaching, the manager's first instinct was to just give her advice, right? Tell her what projects to chase. But the coach pointed out, hey, that's just a friendlier version of being the boss. You're still providing all the answers. The problem wasn't which hat the manager was wearing, it was the assumption that their job was to have all the answers.
So to really solve this, the coach introduces this brilliant framework from psychiatrist Eric Berne. It's a way of understanding the 3 different versions of ourselves, or ego states, that show up in every conversation we have. First up, you've got the parent ego state. You can think of this like a giant recording in your brain of all the rules and beliefs you learned from your parents, teachers, and old bosses. It's the voice that says, you should do it this way, or that's not right. This was the manager's default mode, giving directions, setting the rules. Then there's the child ego state. This is where all your feelings live. It's your gut reactions, your creativity, your joy, your frustration. You know, when an employee feels micromanaged and gets defensive, that's often their child state kicking in and saying, I don't wanna. And finally, the star of our show, the adult ego state. Now, this has nothing to do with your age. It's the rational, objective part of you that's focused on the here and now. It gathers data, it asks questions, it deals with reality, and most importantly, it sees other people as equally capable human beings.
This table really sums it up nicely. But look at that last column, mode. That's the real key here. Both the parent and the child react based on the past, stuff that was taught or felt a long time ago. Only the adult state responds to the present based on what you're thinking right now.
Okay, cool theory, right? But how does this actually help our manager who's stuck between being a boss and a coach? This is where it all clicks together.
This one sentence, this is the key that unlocks the whole thing. The coach explains that real coaching isn't a parent talking down to a child. It's a conversation between two equals, both in their adult state, working through a problem together.
And that was the huge aha moment for the manager. They realized that even when they were trying to be a coach for Sarah, they were still operating from their parent state, giving advice, solving the problem for her. They weren't meeting her adult to adult.
And check this out. It even works for the tough talks. The parent response to a missed deadline is judgmental. You were late, but the adult response? It's just facts and curiosity. The deadline was Friday. What happened? You're not scolding, you're just engaging with reality and treating them like a partner in solving the problem. And just like that, the paradox disappears. It was never real. You don't need two hats. You need one consistent approach, always operating from your adult state. That consistency is what builds real trust and authority, because your team knows they'll always be met by a rational, respectful partner, not a critical parent.
Okay, so this all sounds great, but let's be honest. How do you actually do it? You know, in the heat of the moment, how do you find that adult state and stay there?
Well, the coach offered 4 pretty simple steps. First, just pay attention to that internal urge to jump in, to give advice, to lecture. Second, recognize that feeling for what it is. That's probably your parent state trying to grab the steering wheel. Third, choose to shift. The easiest way? Ask a question instead of making a statement. And finally, get genuinely curious about what they have to say.
This quote from the coach just nails the long-term goal here. Your job isn't to be the hero with all the solutions. Your job is to build a team of capable people who can find solutions themselves, and that only happens through adult-to-adult conversations.
So in the end, the manager didn't need to become a better actor or learn how to switch hats faster. The real answer was to just be one consistent person, a leader who engaged their team as equals, as adults in every single conversation. They didn't just navigate the paradox, they realized it didn't exist.
But of course, it's not always that simple, is it? The coach leaves the manager and all of us with one last really juicy question. What do you do when you show up as an adult, all factual and curious, and the other person responds from their emotional, defensive child state? Well, that sounds like a story for another day.